right, here we are again with chapter 10, What Comes of Handling Snakeskin. So this chapter starts out on page 52 if you'd like to follow along. Long story short here, what happens is Huck wants to talk about the dead man that they saw, and Jim doesn't want to talk about it. He says it's bad luck. You don't talk about a dead man, especially one that hasn't been buried yet. He says more than likely a man that hasn't been buried is more likely to haunt you, so it's best not to talk about him. Well, Huck goes on to say, you talk all the time about all this bad luck. However, you told me when I picked up a snake skin the other day that that's the worst luck in the whole world. Well, then he says, but then look at here. Look at all this stuff that we found. Turns out they found a bunch of silver lined of the clothing that they took from the house. So he's like, I hope there's bad luck all the time if this is what bad luck means for us. Well, Jim predicts, he says, now just wait, it's not over yet. Our bad luck's coming. And it does. Because Huck is out in the woods and a rattlesnake comes up on him and he kills the rattlesnake. No problem there. Kills it right away. Really short part of this chapter. Well, he thinks it would be funny if he took it and he curled it up in the little bed that Jim made for himself in the cavern. Oh, my light shut off. One second. Sorry about that. Anyway, and he thinks it'd be a really funny prank. Well, by the time they get back in the cavern that night, he'd forgotten all about it. Well, the snake's mate was sitting there waiting to strike next to the dead snake, its dead mate. Well, it did. It bit Jim right on the heel. And Jim's like hollering around. And thankfully, Huck was able to kill that snake also. Well, Jim was laid up for 4 days and 4 nights with a swollen leg and a swollen feet. All the while, he tells Huck, you need to cut off the rattles and put them around my wrist. And you need to cut up the snake and then put a bit in the fire and all this other superstition stuff for things that you need to do to prevent yourself from dying from a rattlesnake bite. Well, it's all superstition, but he ends up getting interrupted by Carol. Anyway, all right, so then what happens, he gets all better and it's all good. And at the very end of this chapter, they decide they want to go and figure out what's been going on in town. Specifically, are they talking about Jim? Are they talking about Huck? Are they still looking for them? And the chapter ends with Huck deciding, and Jim deciding too, that he needs to dress up like a girl. So when he goes into town to talk to someone, nobody recognizes him. So he dresses up like a girl and he practices talking like a girl and he practices being a girl all day. And at night he rolls up to the village and there's this little shanty and he peeks in and he sees that it's someone that he doesn't recognize. And he says something along the lines of, I know everybody in our small town, so this stranger is really a value of me because there's no risk of the stranger recognizing me. And if the stranger's even been in the town for 2 days, he says, they're going to know of all the happenings. So the chapter ends with him about to knock on the door to figure out what's been going on in the village. It's an old lady around 40 sitting in there knitting. So we're going to figure out how he does at pretending to be a girl and getting some information out of this stranger. To be continued. Again, please be keeping up with filling out the questions on the other assignment on Schoology. Thank you. And that's all.